Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Integrating Ecology, Economy, and Human Dignity panel initiated by Catholics for a Sustainable Economy. My name is Susan Hollis, and I'll be moderating our conversation today. I'm the Diocesan Director for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development for the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston. But I come to you today also as a Catholic of West Virginia, a mother of three, and someone concerned about the future of our state. We need to take steps now to ensure that our children and grandchildren are able to delight in roaming West Virginia's hills, adventure down the New River's whitewater, and make a full living among this beauty. As a person of faith, I feel strongly about the gospel call to understand the connection between the earth and our human nature. We are entwined with each other and with the land we inhabit. Our responsibility lies with the other and the future. One reason why we're gathering today is to listen. We'll be pulling a lot of wisdom from our guests on the panel. Appalachia has a strong tradition of intentional listening and learning from oral history. This year marks the 25th anniversary of At Home in the Web of Life, a pastoral letter the Catholic bishops of Appalachia developed from listening sessions with Native Appalachians. I want to share a short excerpt with you now. To dwell within these mountains is to experience in their height God's majesty, in their weight God's strength, in their hollows God's embrace, in their waters God's cleansing, in their haze God's mystery. These mountains are truly a holy place. To live in these mountains and forests with their trees and plants and animals is truly to dwell in Earth's community of life. We humans, too, reveal the glory of God. Together with the mountains and the forests and with the plants and animals, we humans join in creation's praise of God in the choral song of the web of life. So today for our event, we have 6 people on our panel. We have Bishop Mark Brennan, Sister Kathleen Durkin, Brandon Dennison, Kate Asquith, Joey James, and Senator Joe Manchin. Each panelist will have a few moments to introduce themselves and their place in the conversation on integrating ecology, economy, and human dignity. Then we'll have about 15 minutes of dialogue and question and answer for the panelists. Throughout our conversation, please type any questions you may have into the chat, and our host will receive these to pose during the question and answer portion. But if you would like to vocalize your question personally, please note that in the chat as well, so I can call on you to ask your question. At the end of the Q&A, Senator Manchin has to leave us a little bit early, and we'll start off our final remarks. And the rest of the panelists will follow with their takeaways from the conversation. Finally, Kate Kosadar, an organizer of Catholics for a Sustainable Economy, will give us a summary and call to action to close our conversation. So let's start off with our panelists. First, I'd like to introduce Bishop Mark Brennan, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston. Bishop Brennan will officially open our time together in prayer. Bishop Brennan?
Yes. Let us pray. Father above, we praise you for the beautiful and fruitful world you have created and entrusted to us. We thank you for the gift of your Son who redeems us from our sins and from death, and who teaches and strengthens us so that we might live with one another justly, in peace, and in love. Bless our discussion today so that our minds are enlightened by it and our wills invigorated for serving you and our brothers and sisters here in our common home, Earth. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. I was asked to give a few remarks starting off. Pope Francis in his letters Laudato Si, and in Carita Amazonia, and elsewhere, and the Appalachian bishops in their historic pastoral letters, This Land is Home to Me, 45 years ago, and At Home in the Web of Life, 25 years ago, addressed the issue of ecology. Of course, that includes physical creation, the land, the rivers, the mountains, the sea, the animals that inhabit them, but also, and especially, God's human creation, men, women, and children, and how our actions and inactions affect their well-being. Pope Francis has a very broad perspective since he addresses the whole world. The Appalachian bishops consider the reality of one extensive region in our country while remaining conscious of global trends. But both stress respect for local culture and advocate for local control and local initiatives such as sustainable development and small-based communities, while decrying the exploitation of poor nations by rich ones or poor regions by richer regions and large businesses and a homogenization of culture. Writing more recently, Pope Francis has attended to climate change and insists that respect for human ecology demands rejecting abortion, euthanasia, and other threats to vulnerable human beings. And similarly, the Appalachian bishops urge efforts to end domestic violence and the abuse of children. For Pope and bishops, an integral ecology must embrace both physical nature and people. I don't know exactly what lessons we're all going to learn from this coronavirus pandemic, but I do hope that going forward, citizens will press their governments to take strong measures to counteract the negative effects of human behavior on the climate, on the physical environment, and on human rights, and will take initiatives of their own, apart from government, to do what they can in those areas. I hope that as well that we may follow Pope Francis' lead in advocating for richer nations to treat poorer nations fairly, in resisting unbridled consumerism, and in rejecting the throwaway culture in its various forms. I'm happy to yield now to our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Bishop Brennan. Our next speaker is Sister Kathleen Durkin. She's a Sister of St. Joseph and Associate Staff Member at St. Joseph's Retreat Center.
Thanks, Susan. I'm a native of Huntington from a large Catholic family where I learned the value of the individual in the context of the common good. And it was this that drew me to the Sisters of St. Joseph. For 370 years, we have asked the question, who is my neighbor? Our mission is the prayer of Jesus, that all may be one. It is this that guides us as we seek to listen to and respond to all dear neighbors. At Home in the Web of Life amplified our core mission, that we are one with every kind of human neighbor, with all creatures and Earth itself. From Appalachia to the global community, Pope Francis' letter, Laudato Si', expands our vision and concern. The cries of the poor and the cries of Earth are one. Human dignity, ecology, and economy are intimately related. Like at Home in the Web of Life, Pope Francis reflects on sustainability. How does our relationship with others and the environment call us to think differently about our economy and the meaning of progress? He points to the human roots of the ecological crisis, emphasis on the human alone, serving humans at creation's expense, profits over people, markets as a mythical guarantee of human flourishing, and the lack of protection of all human life. Our faith is a practical faith. In both documents, we are urged to a change of heart and mind that leads to a new way of living on earth, from domination to communion. So what gives me hope? Groups like this, and a growing awareness of people and groups acting on behalf of all others, including the planet. I see hope when our congregation, in collaboration with other groups such as Grow Ohio Valley, a not-for-profit which addresses food insecurity in the urban core by farming abandoned land, supporting local farmers, and creating employment, along with other groups such as Try This West Virginia. These efforts give me great hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Kathleen. Our next panelist is Brandon Dennison. Brandon's the founder and CEO of Coalfield Development Corporation. Coalfield Development is rebuilding the Appalachian economy from the ground up. They believe in developing the potential of Appalachia through the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. Brandon founded Coalfield Development to offer a unique workforce approach focused on transforming communities. Brandon.
Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for having me. We acknowledge at Coalfield Development what a scary and hard time this economic transition can be for families here in the Mountain State and in other coal communities throughout the country and throughout the world. But there's also opportunity in this transition. It's not all loss, and so we don't have to be completely afraid. We can also be a little bit excited about some new opportunities to come back even better and even stronger and even more fair as of an economy than what we had before. At Coalfield Development, we start new businesses that are designed to show what a more diversified economy can look like. And then we use these businesses to put unemployed people back to work, to help bring people off public assistance and get them back in the workforce. We helped start the first solar company in the southern part of the state. We have a sustainable agriculture company. We do bio-based manufacturing, a purposely diversified set of business activities that can really model what's possible as a result of this economic and environmental transition that we find ourselves in. And it's all about creating opportunity and creating good jobs for people who really need those opportunities and need those jobs. So really happy to be here and really excited to talk about some of the hidden opportunities that we can find economically in this transition.
Wonderful. Thanks, Brandon. Next, Kate Asquith is the VP of Programs and Operations at Appalachian Headwaters. Appalachian Headwaters is a nonprofit working to develop sustainable economic opportunities while restoring damaged ecosystems in Central Appalachia. Kate supports programming which helps displaced or underemployed workers to earn income while repairing our natural environment. Kate.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for letting me be here today. Appalachian Headwaters is a nonprofit that is based on the concept that a strong economy is dependent on a healthy environment. And I'm thrilled to highlight one of our programs here that really underlies that concept. Through the Appalachian Beekeeping Collective program, we train and support beekeepers to earn an income. Our honey is especially marketable because of the pristine environment the bees roam in Appalachia. Customers like that it comes from happy, healthy bees in meadows and forests that are free from pollution that you'd find in areas that are thick with city traffic or heavy industry, development, or pesticide-intensive agriculture. And customers like that our program is teaching people about their environment and climate change. We now have over 100 beekeepers, nearly 1,000 hives, and we're still growing. Partners are earning a nice side income, and some are even moving towards full-time, and their neighbors' gardens and nearby agriculture are producing more. The wild, wonderful West Virginia idea is a huge part of why people want to buy our honey. And with that, I'm happy to pass it back to you, Susan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate. Our next panelist is Joey James. He's a senior strategist at Downstream Strategies. Downstream Strategies is an environmental and economic development consulting firm that focuses on sustaining a healthy natural environment, strengthening local and regional economies, and building resilient communities. Joey's made his career identifying and implementing sustainable development strategies, policies, and products in resource-strapped communities across Appalachia and rural America. Joey.
Thank you, Susan, for that introduction. Really excited to be here. As a consultant, I have the great fortune of getting to work across our region with local communities pursuing sustainable economic development opportunities. All the opportunities we pursue, whether it be in energy, recreation and tourism, or something else, in some way link back to natural resource stewardship. We truly believe that natural resource stewardship is a best practice of economic resilience. But I think there's nothing happening today more emblematic of the linkage between ecological restoration, natural resource stewardship, and economic development than the work Brandon, Kate, myself, and others have taken on working with communities to pursue innovative economic development opportunities on mine sites and other brownfields across the Central Appalachian region through the AML pilot program and other programs. We pursued everything from traditional agriculture, recreation and tourism to large-scale solar. Much more in catalytic projects that connect the ecological restoration of sites with complementary sustainable economic development. We literally are creating assets out of liabilities and doing it in ways that it can be replicated across the region.
Wonderful, wonderful. Our final panelist today is Senator Joe Manchin. Senator Manchin is a Democrat senator for West Virginia and is a ranking member of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. Senator, listening to these stories from our panelists today is encouraging news for our state. Their work truly lifts people and place. What role can you play here in integrating economy and ecology? And how do you see your Catholic faith as a value to your public life?
Well, first of all, thank all of you for inviting me and being part of this today. It's a crazy time here in Washington, as you can imagine. We're trying to get a COVID package done. We're trying to help so many people that'll be falling through the cracks at the end of this year if we don't. Their unemployment runs out, food assistance runs out, shelter runs out, everything will run out. The only way that would stop us from getting a package done is basically politics and ego. And neither one of those should come into play now when you have this much need. So I'm thrilled to be joining Bishop Brennan and my brothers and sisters from the Catholic community for this important discussion today. And I'm also glad that Brandon Dennison, who I've known for quite some time and does a wonderful job, Kate Asquith, and Joey James are part of today's discussion. The incredible work that these folks and their organizations are doing to bring economic vitality to West Virginia in new ways is commendable. And I appreciated hearing their perspective along with Sister Kathleen Durkin. My whole life has been shaped by fathers and sisters. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I was born and raised in Farmington, West Virginia. It's a very small coal mining community, close to Fairmont, about 8 miles from Fairmont, West Virginia, in North Central Park. I was raised down between the creek and the railroad tracks in a little 3-room garage apartment. My grandparents lived next door, devout Catholics. The women were very devout in my family, and they wanted me to be an altar boy. So at 6 years of age, first grade, I started taking Latin. And I was an altar boy until I was 18 years of age, for 12 years. Didn't always understand what I was reciting, but I could do it pretty good. And so anyway, I did it all the way through high school, and I enjoyed it so much. I really did look forward to it. But I was in charge for a whole week. So how it would work, if it was your week, you had to go open up the church, get the furnace, get everything going, light all the candles, bring all the guests in and all of the parishioners that would come. And we had the same four ladies that came every morning, and then we'd have different people would come. But it was a wonderful time for me to understand and learn and be responsible at a very young age. CYO was pretty special to me. Catechism was always a fun thing. And they would come, the sisters would come from Fairmont. And then when I went to kindergarten in 5th grade and at 5 years of age, I went to now, which is now the Ross Funeral Home. Back then, that was the Watson Mansion. So I took piano lessons there. Everything I remember. Went to Camp Don Bosco, Boy Scout camp for Catholics. Learned how to box and get my nose bloodied. I have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful memories. I just can't tell you. My grandmother, I watched my family live their faith. If there was someone hungry in our town, my grandfather had a little grocery store, he fed them. If there was someone who got injured in the mining accident, because we had 4 big mines around us, or if a miner died, we were the first ones to take groceries to the home and make sure they were taken care of until something else came along for them. So I watched my grandmother. If we saw a child back then, polio was pretty rampant, and if a kid had polio, we had to stop. She'd make the sign of the cross and say a prayer. And she said, "Joe, remember, by the grace of God, that could be your eye." I'll never forget this. And to this day, you keep thinking of the things that shaped who you are. And Gail and I, we're parishioners of Sacred Heart in Charleston. We greatly value our relationship with Father Don Higgs, who's been a dear friend. Monsignor Sadie, who just has been Monsignor Sadie. If you don't know him, you should. If you do, you know what I'm talking about. And then so many others across the state, like Father C. Father C's become a part of our life too. So throughout my whole life, I've counted Catholic clergy, not only as my friends, but as important spiritual advisors. When I'm the only governor that's been Catholic in West Virginia, I think. I'm the only governor that ever got the 4th degree of the Knights of Columbus in the governor's office. We broke a lot of milestones there. And then we brought the Council of Churches, and we used to have prayer on a monthly basis in the governor's reception room. We just made sure people knew that our faith was who we are and how it drove us. The pandemic has definitely caused us to make changes to our daily routines, and I applaud the diocese for bringing as much normalcy to the lives of their parishioners as possible during these challenging times. You've done a great job keeping parishioners who want to worship in person safe, while also adapting to a new virtual reality and offering Mass online. I know that Gail and I have watched Masses online and appreciate being able to worship safely. Just like public schools, parochial schools have also been deeply impacted in this pandemic. Teachers, support staff, administrators have done a wonderful job keeping our children safe in these unprecedented times. This is a time to grow and build our Catholic schools, and I challenge the diocese to take a look at the hardships that you faced during this pandemic and come out of this pandemic stronger while continuing to provide a quality educational environment for both Catholic and non-Catholic families, instilling faith-based values that will last a lifetime. And there's not one of us on this Zoom that doesn't understand that. The Christmas season is typically a time for happiness and celebration with our families.
Okay.
I'll go right to it because Catholic teaching teaches all to help each other, which means you cannot go home for Christmas. That's a hardship for all of us right now. We know that. But in the midst of the moral issue created by the pandemic, it's important to make the longstanding role the Catholic community has taken. Let me talk about the challenges we face. I believe there's a balance between the economy and the environment, and I believe we all have to be rational about this. I have been very, very, very clear on where I stand. We need all of our energy to be used in the cleanest fashion as we move forward to the energy of the future. So when I say about global climate, it's not West Virginia climate, it's not North American climate, it's global climate. And we better be thinking about what India is doing and the pollution that's coming there from the first generation of power that they're receiving, using the older technologies that we have eliminated. So I'm on this committee. I am chairman, I'm ranking member on energy and natural resources. I have a staff of about 19 that work only on energy. And then if the Democrats would be in the majority, I'll be chairman of the committee. But we work, no matter whether you're chairman or ranking member, you work very close with these. So we're looking for an environment. First and foremost, you want this country to be energy independent. And to be a superpower of the world, you have to be energy independent. That means you use everything you have, but not recklessly. You've got to make sure that you use the scrubbers, the low NOx boilers, and basically baghouses, carbon capture sequestration. Coal was diminishing over half in the last 10 years. And it'll continue as renewables come on. But until we get storage, until we get fusion, until we get the fuels of the future, which could be hydrogen, we're not there yet. But we should be using our trading policies, the way we trade with other countries, give them caveats to our economy if they use the technology that we perfected. That should be a whole nother job creation, making and building the man through the technology and innovation. You can't eliminate your way to a clean environment. You can innovate your way to a clean environment.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And soon I'm going
to have to go. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Senator. Sorry, Senator Manchin had to leave early today before the rest of our panel, but we are going to continue on without him. We're very thankful for his time today. So first, I would like to, soon we're going to enter our Q&A portion, and all our panelists are unmuted and are able to respond anytime. And as I said before to everyone else, please type your questions into the chat and Kate will receive those. And we'll be asking those questions as we move forward. So please, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, type those into the chat. So first, I would like Bishop Brennan to give him a chance to respond to Senator Manchin and what he said about energy independence.
Well, I think, if it's an interdependent world, then we have to look at what we mean by, do we really want complete energy independence for our country? if we're interdependent with other nations, other parts of the world. I think we have to consider that. And again, with Pope Francis calling the richer nations to be fair to the poorer nations, perhaps some use of our energy resources to help poorer nations. I do like what he says about trying to share with other developing nations the innovations we've had in cleaner energy and so on. That seems to me a very, very helpful thing. A lot depends on what strings are attached to it, I think, and respecting the actual situation of other countries. I was going to ask him before he unfortunately had to leave early, with his experience here, but I can ask all of you, what kinds of economic development do you see as most viable in West Virginia? And is it, I would think it probably depends on the region of the state you're talking about, but people need jobs, but decent jobs. What do you see from your experience as really the viable kinds of economic development that this state could sustain and benefit its citizens?
Do any of our panelists have something?
I can take a crack at that. I think sometimes folks ask me, what should replace coal? And that's not what the bishop is asking exactly, but I do like to, we don't necessarily, I don't think that's the right question. So I think part of our problem is we've been over dependent on this one industry, and it's made us very economically vulnerable to put all our eggs in that one basket. So the answer is we want to be a diversified economy with lots of different kinds of opportunities for all different kinds of people. Mm-hmm. I do think I've been amazed by the success of the solar company. There's potential in renewables for sure. We used to be an agriculture state several generations ago. I think Kate is an example of there's real agriculture opportunities here. It's not as large scale and industrial like in Iowa with corn or Idaho with potatoes, but there is real entrepreneurial niche opportunities in agriculture. And I think in manufacturing, what I call bio-based manufacturing, the great thing about the West Virginia workforce is we're makers. We like to work with our hands. We like to make and fix and build and grow. And that's actually a real strength for the new economy that we need to build. And there's making and manufacturing opportunities for us.
Okay. I'd like to hear that. In my last parish, we built a convent. Other places were closing them. We built one for some sisters working in our parish. What we did was we got a prefabricated home. It was made up in Pennsylvania. We went up to the factory and saw them, and it served very well. I wonder, with all of the wood we got in this state, if that couldn't be a growth industry to actually make these homes here. You just need the proper transportation. These are big, bulky things. You got to move them around, a 2-lane road, maybe with turns and twists, and that's kind of tough. But there are railroad tracks here too, I noticed. So I just wonder if that isn't one area that might be developed more.
Sure.
Absolutely. And
oh, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, I'll just expand a little bit on what Brandon started there, because I thought of something that I said sometimes when I give talks at conferences and things. I'll say something that I had no idea I was going to say, and I think, oh, that was a great thing that I just said. I'm going to write that down and say it again. Similarly, I think when asked about what type of economic development works in Central Appalachia, it's a common question that we get. When what I began to answer that question with is local economic development. And I think that's something that historically we really let outside forces dictate what our markets and our communities looked like. And there's no shortage of good, big ideas in our local communities. And so what we need to do as, I'll say us as stakeholders in Appalachia is lift up these ideas, that every community has, and connect them with the resources they need in order to pursue all types of economic development opportunities.
Great. I have a question here that relates to this train of thought. What practical steps can we as a Catholic community foster sustainable economic development? Or should parish be choosing green energy? Should Catholic charities be expanding their weatherization projects? Any other ideas that we can do as a Catholic community?
Kate, do you want to? You haven't got to go yet.
Sorry, I'm hesitant to jump in and step on anybody's toes on this Zoom. But another thing in addition to everything you just mentioned, Susan, is it might be a good idea to incorporate environmentalism into your educational outreach. That's something that we've found to be an incredibly important part of reaching communities, is working with kids and doing environmental education. It's a big program that Appalachian Headwaters has, but there's a lot of good things that can be done just by teaching kids, and that way you end up reaching families as well. And since it's such a part of the Catholic doctrine now, it seems like that would be a really great way that you could work as a community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sister Kathleen. She needs to be unmuted, just one.
Thanks. I'd just like to tag on the education piece. I think that it's, for me as a Catholic and as a long history as an educator, it feels to me like the documents that we have just spoken about, At Home in the Web of Life, This Land is Home to Me, Laudato Si, I would love to see them permeate the curriculum of our Catholic schools, our CCD programs. I'd like to see them reflected in preaching. I'd like to see us be celebrating the season of creation, because that is a way of educating. And one of the things I was remembering was, and I don't know how this operates now, but at one time at Wheeling Jesuit, the whole Catholic social teaching and these documents were not just part of the theology class, but they permeated the curriculum and helped students to think about, through immersion trips, through service, through their education, how do we live out in practical ways? What does this look like out of an economy or in physical therapy or whatever, so that the values are shaping our worldview? And I think that for us is part of the challenge. How do these values that are gospel values permeate our everyday lives? So thanks for the touching into education.
Wonderful. We have another important question that we want to address. There's two different people asking this question. So there's been a movement for organizations across the US to divest from fossil fuels. And this is an important question for our diocese, where a lot of income comes from fossil fuels. Is anyone looking to address this, Bishop Brennan?
I've already asked the managers of our portfolio.
I'm sorry, Bishop, we can't hear you very well. Are you able to?
Well, make sure I'm unmuted.
Wonderful.
There you go.
Now we can hear you.
All right. Yeah. I've asked for the company that manages our portfolio, our stock investments, to let me know what energy companies, I have to see what, I've seen a list, but I don't remember them all, but what energy companies we invest in, and which are involved with extracting, things from the soil, and the fossil fuels and so on. So we're going to take a look at that. At the same time, unlike most dioceses, Wheeling Charleston does not get very much support from parishes. What they call here the cathedraticum tax. I think the highest one it's 3%. When I was a pastor in the Washington Archdiocese, I paid 15. Folks here get a break. Catholics, you all get a break here, if you're living here. Your parishes, we don't get much from the parishes. We give far more to the parishes and to the schools and other agencies. So the diocese provides an awful lot of support. Where does it come from? Well, the bulk of our income tends to come either from the portfolio investments, which ultimately came from revenue from gas and oil, but the rest of it comes from current sales of gas and oil from property we own, mostly in Texas, right? It's kind of, you know the story of the pig and the hen who struck up a friendship on the farm. And so one morning the hen says, well, why don't we have breakfast together? And the pig says, well, what would you like to have? And the hen says, well, how about ham and eggs? And the pig says, well, you know, for you, that's a contribution, but for me, it's total commitment. So to immediately let go of our ownership of land that produces the gas and oil that sustains many of our parishes and schools and other agencies, that's not going to happen tomorrow. But we are going, and the Pope isn't asking for that tomorrow. He is saying, take a real look at all this. So we are going to take a real look at it. I mean, I'm pretty new here in West Virginia, so I'm still learning a lot about things here. But I am concerned because, you know, I think honestly, while there's been climate change ever since this planet existed, and human beings have only been here a short time, nonetheless, we seem to be having an impact, and often a negative one, on climate change. So we have to look at, see, with the fossil fuels and all that. I fully agree to going forward. We have to study that carefully and take the responsible steps once we decide what we need to do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Senator Manchin mentioned that we can innovate our way to the future, and clearly we need to develop that technology that is being worked on towards 100% renewable energy. But as you're saying, Pope Francis and climate change calls us to also reduce the rate of our energy use. So how can we, and this is for all the panelists, how can we shift, encourage a social shift away from materialism and consumerism? And how are you working towards greater simplicity and decreasing your own consumption?
That's a great question. I think that for our, we use our enterprises to hire unemployed people or people on public assistance. And then it's not just about a job, it's really about creating a supportive space where people can live a full life and discover their purpose. And we don't tell anybody what their purpose is, but we want to be the kind of nurturing place where people can discover that. And in helping someone discover their purpose, the most powerful thing you can do is lead by example. So we, from small things to, you know, we drink a lot of coffee at our place, and, you know, bringing your own mug instead of tearing through styrofoam and paper cups. That's a small gesture, but it sets an example and it sets a tone for a way of life. And same with composting, same with recycling, and on and on. I think that for me, that sometimes folks will push back like, well, that doesn't, you know, the actual impact on carbon is not huge, and it's not. But I actually think the strongest argument for living lives of environmental sustainability, it's not sort of beating people over the head with stats and statistics and scaring, you know, leading with fear, but it's really a message of how we live our lives and how we steward our time and our place on this earth responsibly and faithfully and lovingly. So it becomes a positive argument of there's a better way to do life. There's a better way to do community and how we treat each other and how we treat our environment. And if we can model that and show that, that example is very powerful.
Piggyback on what Brandon's saying, we try and make a point of being considerate of exactly that, leading by example. And we use it as a teaching tool and a marketing tool. We use all recycled packaging, and we put that on our packaging. We have a big solar array, and we have a picture of it on our website and talk about it. We don't use synthetic chemicals or antibiotics in our hives, and that's a huge reason why our honey has the value that it has in the marketplace. And we buy as much local produce as we can for our summer camp for kids, and we use that as a huge teaching tool for the kids. And then they go home and they talk about that. It's a teaching tool and a selling point.
Definitely, you're both saying you gotta live what you preach. And I agree, it's very important as we move forward in this conversation and listening to across the state. Unfortunately, we have to move on from our Q&A. Thank you all so much for your engagement and to all of our presenters for sharing your thoughts. And I want to go back to Sister Kathleen. If you, and this will be the same question for all of our presenters, if you would like to offer one key takeaway from our conversation today.
My key takeaway is
Yes.
I'm very hopeful.
Alrighty, wonderful. Do you have anything to add, Sister Kathleen?
Well, just the sense of hearing. I mean, this is very energizing to hear the initiatives that are being taken. And I'd love to connect more with these folks because our congregation is doing a lot of work around supporting these kinds of initiatives, particularly not-for-profit. Like I mentioned Grow Ohio Valley. We have a big connection with Grow Ohio Valley, with Tradis West Virginia. So, you know, these are groups that are really aligned with the values that we hold, that we are all one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Next, we're gonna go to Brandon for your final takeaway.
I would just encourage us all to embrace the opportunities that are in this time. I feel like so often our discussion on energy in coal communities, it just totally lacks imagination. You know, surely we can be more than one thing. Surely we are more than one thing, and we're capable of so much more than just being one thing. And this is it's a scary time, but it's an opportunity to realize all those different versions of potential that we know we have.
Great, thank you. Kate.
Yeah, the key takeaway I see time and again in this region is just how intrinsically tied the economy and the environment really are. One of our key programs is restoring forest on mine lands, and I see so many opportunities for that type of work. And I know that Joey's group and Brandon's group have done similar types of work restoring mine lands or putting things into practice on mine lands. But like that program is paying former coal mining equipment operators to restore old mines using the same equipment once used to mine the land in the first place. There's just so many opportunities there. You restore these sites back to, say, healthy, productive forest land that provides jobs for equipment operators, nursery workers, tree planters, and it makes way for forestry jobs and recreational tourism. And it's the same thing. If you create opportunities in these areas, there's really a lot to be done there. But that's all about prioritizing the environment and helping put the best of this region forward. And I'm thrilled to hear so many people talking about that today.
Yes, definitely. Next to Joey.
Thank you. Again, you know, I think this discussion has been great, and I thank everybody for joining. I think we heard from the senator and from a few others on this call, you know, that we, in the age of COVID, we can expect there to be a greater focus on self-resilience and more specifically economic resilience. And I think some of the discussion that we've had has provided some examples on how we can create economic opportunity through that pursuit of resilience. And I think that is a very relevant conversation to have right now, because as these different stimulus packages work their way through, there are going to be federal and state programs to increase economic resilience in our communities. And we need to start thinking today how we can engage with those programs to have the type of future in Appalachia, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, that we want to have. And I think the church can play a pivotal role in facilitating, you know, that conversation.
Wonderful, thank you. In place of Senator Manchin, we still have one of his staffers on the call. Zahava, do you have anything you'd like to say on behalf of Senator Manchin?
Sure. Well, first, again, we apologize. The senator had to jump early. As you heard, things are crazy over here, and he's working really hard to put together a bipartisan package to try to help some folks. So my name is Zahavi Ureki. I am originally from Charleston, West Virginia. I've been on the Senator's Committee staff for about a year, worked for him for 3 years, and I'm currently back in West Virginia during the pandemic. I'm actually Jewish. My father is a rabbi, but I am a graduate of Charleston Catholic High School, so was very excited that the Senator was doing this today. I think one of the things I work on the committee is workforce issues. And one of the important things that the Senator always stresses, and something that we're always looking at, is just making sure we don't leave folks behind. It's something that helping others and making sure we don't leave folks behind is something that's important in my religion. During my time at Charleston Catholic, I know it's something that's part of the Catholic faith as well. And it's something that's important to him. So as we're looking for these new opportunities and things, it's so encouraging to hear what folks like Brandon and Kate and Joey are doing to not only kind of move toward that clean energy future and a more sustainable future, but making sure that we're coming up with opportunities that are helpful for our state and moving us forward. So we really appreciated being a part of this conversation, appreciate the work you guys are doing. If there are things that we can be helpful with moving forward, please feel free to reach out anytime, and we're happy to help with that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zahava. And finally, Bishop Brennan, if you'd like to offer a final takeaway for our conversation today.
Well, I mean, to me, it's very important that people have work to do, not only to sustain their own lives, but also to have something, as St. Paul would say, to share with others, right? And and what work is a person's sense of dignity. You're doing something that matters. You're doing something that contributes to the common good. Those are important values to stress. So what are the kinds of the local? I like what I can't say the name. Brandon, was it you who spoke about the local initiatives, or maybe Joey, but those are, I think, very important ones. I also wonder if, maybe tying into education, one of our saints, Don Bosco, was a pioneer in industrial education in the late 19th century in Italy, and throughout the world, through the Salesian order they founded. I wonder if there'd be some kind of opportunity for the church through its Catholic schools to not everyone, let me tell you, not everyone's destined for college. Not everyone should be going to college. There's a lot of other folks who, I have a nephew who does really good work with his hands, working with wood. You don't need college for that, but you do need training and a good industrial kind of high school experience, and maybe with mentorships and apprenticeships and so on. That could be maybe a valuable contribution. We'll have to certainly look into that. I'd rather open a school than have to close one, to be honest with you. So, but if you have any ideas on that, let me know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bishop, and thank you to all of our panelists once again. Your time today has been vital to this conversation as we move forward. And in our final moments together, I'd like to thank Catholics for a Sustainable Economy, the driving force behind this conversation, all the work they've done, and also to Lonnie Ellis of In Solidarity for putting in so much time and care to organize our conversation today, for sure. Thank you so much, all. Kate Kosadar from Catholics for Sustainable Economy is going to end our time today together. And Kate, your final remarks on integrating ecology, economy, and human dignity.
Thanks, Susan. And on behalf of our group, Catholics for Sustainable Economy, I just want to thank everyone for being part of this conversation. I know, so I was managing the chat. We did not get to all of the questions that were asked, and I'm sorry about that. And we did not go deep enough into all of the issues that there are. But our group is committing this event is just the beginning of a long road of work. So thank you for being with us at this very beginning of our work. And I just want to let everyone know that over the next 3 months, each member of Catholics for Sustainable Economy will be initiating 5 one-on-one conversations around the state. So we're going to be talking with small business owners, with campus ministers, environmental organizations, with people involved in coal mining and gas drilling, with men and women religious, and we'll just talk with our neighbors and members of our parishes. We want to keep asking these important questions. We want to keep the conversation going about how we integrate ecology, economy, and human dignity. our guiding question is open-ended. What does a sustainable economy look like in West Virginia? And how can we work toward that vision? And we hope that each one of you that's been invited into this conversation will join us in continuing this dialogue. Maybe you'll choose a couple of people to have these conversations with. We want to be able to explore and dream together. What's possible, what's necessary, and what must we overcome? So these one-on-one conversations that we're initiating are going to form the foundation of another dialogue event like this one in the spring. So get ready for that. So we will be able to accomplish so much if we work together, and you can join us by getting in touch with the person who invited you here today, or you can go ahead and email me at katekosadarwrites@gmail.com. In the first pastoral letter the Appalachian bishops released, "This land is home to me," in 1975, they wrote this. This letter, itself a product of dialogue, will start a process wherein the Catholic community can join together with people of goodwill throughout the region to reflect on and act for a more just society. While we have no answers, we have some principles to guide the process. Our searching must carefully balance the following three elements: closeness to the people, careful use of scientific resources, and a steeping in the presence of the Spirit. So we all have a role in building this dialogue and in building the kingdom of God, and in acting for a more just society. So thank you again for being with us today. And I hope that God will bless each of us and all of our work. So,
wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.